Hey guys, it's V, and welcome to my ghostly dinner speed build in Fallout 76. Most of you are probably already aware that there was recently a pretty big update in the game that involved camp building, where they gave us relaxed building restrictions, finally. So there were a lot of different things that were changed, but essentially camp building just got much easier in the game. They basically gave us what we had in custom worlds, or what we had available to us in custom worlds. So the free place kind of building where you can merge things into each other much easier. There are still some restrictions, and you'll see some of that in the video. In this video, I'll go over some of the different techniques that I used and what's doable, what's still difficult, different ways to get around those kinds of things. And hopefully that some of those things will be helpful to you, I'm hoping. So this video is basically all of the footage that I have of me creating this build. It's obviously very sped up, and I cut out as many things as I could that weren't really very relevant. I probably could have cut out a lot more, but I wanted it to be like the full experience of how I build. This video is definitely not meant to be a tutorial on how to efficiently recreate this exact build, because as you'll see, as you watch it, if you watch it, which thank you if you do, but it's very messy, and you'll see the whole like thinking process of like how I am, figuring things out, and the evolution of like how I change things. I'm sounding like super fucking serious about this. Basically, I just wanted to have the whole process of how I build. So it's not like perfect, and I didn't need it to be perfect because, again, this isn't me trying to make a tutorial for you on how to make this build. And if showing how I build and showing what I do and talking about, what I'm doing, if that helps anybody in their building process, then that's cool, that's great. Or if this is just entertaining, then that's fine too. Hopefully it's one or the other, or some variation of that. So as we get into the actual build footage here, I also wanted to acknowledge the fact that this video is very long. I am aware, and I decided to just go with that. I personally really enjoy watching these kind of speed build videos from The Sims, and I will literally just like sit down with my dinner and watch an hour-long video of somebody building a house or something in The Sims. I really enjoy that. So I'm hoping that will translate to this game. I don't really know. I guess you guys can let me know if this is if this is something that you are interested in, if this is appealing to you at all. I have no idea. Let me know. Now that we've got all of that out of the way, I'm going to start talking about the actual build itself and my thought process behind it, and also talk about the footage that you are actually seeing and explaining some of the things that I'm doing and why. I tested out the light for these chandeliers, which were like visually the chandeliers that I wanted to use because they're very fancy and they just have the right vibe. But when I turned the light on for them, obviously it is this disgustingly white, bright light that is awful, and I didn't want to use that. And so I just decided to make my own light by putting lanterns inside it, and it works perfectly. It kind of illuminates them in this really cool way. They like glow. It's perfect. So yes, it is double the budget, light budget, which in this build ended up being maxed out pretty easily with all the candles and everything that I have. Initially, I kind of hid these power conduits inside, and I connected the chandeliers with wires. And I was really trying to figure out for a while what to do. Basically, the entire build, I was trying to figure out how to address the fact that these chandeliers were floating. Like, I wanted them to be floating. That was the point. I wanted it to feel very ghostly and mysterious, but I didn't know what to put on top of them. I couldn't figure it out for basically the entire build. I figured it out very close to the end, and I will come back to that. But I did end up removing the wires and the conduits in the end. So this little footage that I included here is something that I do in pretty much all of my builds, which is my little staging area, kind of. It's like where I create this visual collage of all of the different items that I think I'm going to use in the build, and I just put them all together in one little spot, and it kind of helps me remember what I want to use. And it, like, initially I use it as a way to figure out what my build is actually going to be and what it's going to look like, and to make sure that I have the items that I want to use. And I feel like this is probably a really good spot to talk about what my actual inspiration was for this build and what the concept was that I went into it with and all of that stuff. So some of you might remember my ghost ship build that I did a couple years ago around Halloween. And it was in a custom world, and I feel like this build is very much like an extension of that build. I feel like they go together. I will put the link for that video in the description if you would like to check it out. Like I said, I think I said, it was in a custom world, so it actually might be useful to watch that video now. There are definitely certain aspects of that build that you cannot do in adventure mode, but there's a lot of things in it that we can do now in adventure mode. So I don't know. I think it would be interesting to watch that now that we have the ability to build more like that. So I was trying my best to get this build done and out before Halloween, and I did not make that deadline for myself. But this was obviously meant to be a Halloween kind of October spooky season build. And I used a few different photos from my Pinterest for inspiration. I will link that in the description if you'd like to check it out. I use Pinterest a lot for inspiration. But anyway, I have this board that is just called Dark, and it has a bunch of kind of darker, spooky kind of stuff in it. And one of the photos in particular was just of a table with a ton of candles on it and some skulls, I think. And so that was kind of the starting point for me, was just in my mind, I had this vision of a long table that was just completely packed with candles and skulls and like plants, flowers, but like dried flowers. I definitely wanted it to have a dark feeling, but I didn't want it to be gory. So there's like no blood and guts or anything, just kind of witchy and spooky. I definitely wanted it to have a little bit of an abandoned feeling. I didn't want it to look like it's a perfectly set table with food and everything. There is no food really, I don't think. And like there's place settings that are missing. And I wanted it to look like if you stumbled upon it in the woods at night for some reason, that you would kind of feel very uneasy, but at the same time, like there's nothing actually very scary about it. It's just a little bit creepy, maybe. So one of the things that you'll start to see now as we get into more of the decorating part of the table is how I used the free place, the new free place option, to decorate a lot of this table, and how I used that to be able to very easily sink items down into the table. You'll also see, for example, down at the bottom of the screen, you can see where it says placement, and you can toggle that between free, snap, and collide. And most of the time I am just switching back and forth between free place and snapping when I need to. So for example, I had to turn it on to snapping in order to be able to merge this item down into the poker chip in the way that we did, that we always used to do with the pressure plates. So in this footage right here, you can see that I placed this little crow on the skull. Using the poker chip, I kind of put it down into the table. But once I put the poker chip below the table, I can't grab it anymore. And so what I have to do is use free cam mode and go under the table and select the poker chip, which is kind of difficult to do at times. But if you ever get anything stuck and you can't grab it anymore, you can't select it, always go into free cam mode and try to basically just kind of get inside. Like, you have to get inside the object sometimes. And I personally just watch the top right corner and look for the name to pop up. And sometimes it takes forever and sometimes it seems impossible. But usually, almost all of the time, you can grab it. It just takes a lot of maneuvering. The reason that I still needed to use the pressure plate for that raven post is because I wanted the skull, like the top part of it with the skull or just the bird, to be sitting on the table. I have a couple of them on the table. And in order to do that, the bottom of the post actually has to go underground. And by merging it into an object like the poker chip, you could use a different object if you'd like to. By doing that, you can actually just put it down even further. So the bottom of the post does go into the ground. You don't have to do anything else crazy. So yeah, the pressure plate is still going to be useful, and being able to switch back to snapping and to turn snapping off is like really great. One of the things that I haven't really addressed yet is the fact that because I'm putting all of these objects kind of like merged into the table, so the bottom part of different objects is sticking through the bottom of the table. Eventually, I do have to figure out a way to cover those all up, and I do show that later in the video. I didn't think about it very much while I was making it, so it kind of just wasn't a concern of mine. Like, whatever happened on the underside of the table was not my business. But it became my business by the end of the build. And I did figure out something that I thought worked, but this technique would definitely work better on like solid objects or things that you can't see on the underside of, where you can like just push stuff into it and it doesn't matter what it looks like. Anyway, you can see here that I am starting to work on the actual design or composition of the tablescape itself. I really wanted to create three main points of interest on the table that were kind of mimicking this shape that was created by the arch of these chandeliers. So I started out with this centerpiece, and I wanted to have this one be the tallest one, and then have two kind of shorter centerpieces on either side of the table. And I didn't want them to be perfectly symmetrical. I didn't want anything to be very symmetrical. I wanted it to all be varied and have a lot of different height and dimensions and shapes and all of that. So there was a lot of like standing back and looking at it to make sure that everything was balanced and that there was enough visual interest in all of the different places. I don't know how to describe that in words any better, but it just was a lot of standing back and looking at it and then making tiny changes, which is basically my entire building process in a nutshell. It is a lot of standing back and staring and looking and thinking and visualizing, and then I make a few little adjustments and changes, and I add some things, and I move things around, and then I stand back and I stare at it for quite a while. Which is why it is very difficult for me to stream building. I did actually do a 76 building stream on Twitch the other week, and I went into it with like the best of intentions, but I ended up not really getting any building done. I don't know why. It's like there's something about streaming that just makes my creative brain turn off. And I keep telling myself that I'm going to keep trying to build on stream because I really would like to be able to do it. It's just very difficult. And it's going to take some time, I guess, to try to get past that. So in this bit of footage here, or in this whole kind of section of footage, I am kind of just messing with different objects to try to envision them in different ways. So for example, that table there, which is one of my favorite little side tables that you can get from the White Spring Resort in that mall area. But I was trying to think of a way to use it as kind of a tray on the table. I ended up not really liking that idea and I moved on to something else. And here I am testing out one of the weather machines. So while I was building, I think I was using this weather machine to kind of turn it into nighttime when I needed it to be when it was daytime. And then most of the time when I was building, I just had the weather machine off because I didn't really need it. I think I really wanted to have this build not have a weather machine because I really like this specific location at night. It's very dark. Even in the daytime, it's very dark. There's like this weird little, um, I keep wanting to say cove of trees. I don't know. I can't think of the word that I'm trying to think of, but there's this little section of trees that I obviously filled out with more trees to create this little cozy, whatever the word is that I can't think of. Um, but anyway, it's very dark in this location was the point. And I have always loved this spot. I have a really, really old build. It's probably one of the oldest builds that I still have on any of my characters in this exact spot and on this same character. So when I was thinking about where I wanted to put this build, this location just kept popping back into my head. And so I just decided, why not? I mean, I looked all over the map for different spots, and I found some in the Skyline Valley, that newer location. It still feels new to me. I haven't explored it a whole lot, but anyway, the whole point of this was to talk about the weather machines. I ended up using the Mothman weather machine in the end. I didn't want to use a weather machine at all because I do like the natural lighting of the location, but I also like having the control of knowing that when somebody comes to visit the build, it's not going to be at an ugly time of day when it's like super, sunny or something, or it's raining, or I mean, I guess raining would be fine, but like there's certain times of the day that I don't think it looks its best. So for me, using the Mothman weather machine was perfect because it doesn't look as purple as it does in some other locations. And I guess I didn't want to use the Mothman weather machine specifically because I've used that in quite a few of my last builds. But anyway, I think that it doesn't look so obvious. It's not like super, super purple. It just kind of gives this darkness, like a really good dark vibe that I like. So I just was kind of talking over this last little bit of footage where I started using the chessboard displays in this build. Originally, not for some reason. Originally, I was not planning to or intending to or wanting to use the chessboard displays for the build, which is like really crazy, especially considering how many, I mean, I used all of them in the end. But I think that I didn't want to like mentally think about having to go around the map and collect all of the items that I was going to want to use. And like, I just didn't want to think about all of the extra time and energy and thought that I would need to have to do all of this. I don't know, which is stupid because that's the whole point of the build. And anyway, I was originally trying, like I said earlier, I was trying to figure out how to address the top of these chandeliers. And so I guess I was putting skulls on top of them, and I was thinking that there would be some way of hiding the chessboard part of it eventually. So I was like adding these big skulls. I don't know. I guess I just thought maybe having big skeletons and skulls and bones up there would be cool. It didn't end up working out, so I did remove them. But I guess I should take a minute to kind of talk about the chessboard displays. I just assume that everybody knows what they are, which I do think most people do, but I'll talk about them anyway. This was an item that was given to us in like a past season or a scoreboard or something. I don't remember which one. And it, until very recently, was not available in the Atom shop at all, but it has since been in the shop at least once. I'm not sure. I'll try to get that information and put it on the screen or something. I don't know. But you at least can get this item at some point in the Atom shop. I'm not really sure when it will be in there or if it currently is. But it's basically just a junk display item. And so anything, almost anything, not everything in the game you can put in a display case or a display thing, but a lot of things you can. And so it is like a really, really good object to have. I would definitely recommend getting that. If you ever see it in the shop, for sure, get the chessboard display. They would make so much money if they made another item like that that was even easier to hide. That would be awesome. But this works fine. And another thing to kind of think about when you're using these junk items that you're displaying is to try to use them in different ways. They're very easy to merge with other camp items. And so, for example, I put this smaller version of this candle inside a wine bottle, and I really loved that. I mean, the candle's already in a bottle, so it's kind of like, okay, you're just putting it in a different bottle, but it's in a different bottle. So we have a completely different candle in a bottle. And I liked it. So I did use that at some point in the build. I put it on a table somewhere. I don't know. I know that there are some other instances on the table of where I merged the display items with in-game items, but I can't really think of what any of them are at this point. And so I will maybe try to point those out as the footage goes on. But this whole next section is just kind of me decorating, and I can't really think of anything to say about it too much. So I thought I would mention that I do have another Fallout 76 build that is completely done. And I haven't started working on the video yet, but I do have footage for the video that I will be using, and I do intend to make a YouTube video on it. And I'm actually like really excited to share it because it just kind of came together really well. I'm not even going to say what it is because it's going to be a surprise, but I do have another build that's already done. At the time of recording this audio right now, it is, I shouldn't even say what the date is. It's January though. We are in are we in the second week of January? I don't know. And when I started working on this video, it was October, or I was trying to finish this video in October of 2025. It is now 2026. Happy New Year, by the way. Oh my gosh, I hope that I finish this video really, really soon. And so by the time you're listening to this, it will not be like, June of 2026. I don't know. I have a feeling I'm going to be able to get through this and finish this video quickly because I feel motivated. At least right now, in this moment, I feel motivated. I'm just rambling. I haven't even been looking at the footage that I'm watching. But anyway, I have another build that I'm going to be working on, another video for YouTube. In the meantime, I still, as always, have been posting stuff on Patreon. I have Sims builds, I have ESO builds. I just actually posted a video of me building in ESO, and I did a voiceover for it. And I think that's also what has kind of given me a little bit of a push to continue working on the audio for this video, because that one I got done in one day, and it was just really easy. For some reason, sometimes when I work on recording audio, it's like I can get an hour done in, a day, and other times it's like a struggle to even get 2 minutes of audio recorded, and then I have a mental breakdown about it, like it's crazy, and then I give up and I don't work on it for like 3 months. So I don't know. I think that I am just feeling motivated right now. I'm feeling positive about being able to get some of this audio done, and so I'm just going to work on it as much as I can when I can, and do the best that I can, as always. So in this next bit of footage, I'm just going to be continuing to decorate the table a little bit more. I was adding more of these birds. I think you can have 3 total of these particular camp item, and so I was adding some of those birds in and just continuing to try to figure out the layout of the table. Yeah, I feel like I wanted to point out the ridiculousness of this entire video, not necessarily the build. I love this build, I really do, but I feel like the fact that this video is going to be the longest video that I've ever put on my channel, and this is like one of the smallest builds, I just feel like it's so strange, and I kept I kept overthinking it and being like, why am I making this massively long video for such a tiny little build? But I feel like at the same time, it just makes sense because it's heavy on just the decorating and the design aspect of it, which I feel like is what is and has always been my strong suit with my building, is just not necessarily the structures. Like, I don't get too crazy with the building. I will now that we have relaxed building restrictions, but in the past when we had to do such technical stuff to make cool builds, like I didn't enjoy doing that. I didn't enjoy breaking things and like having to figure out the order of everything in order to make something cool. I just, to be honest, I would be happy building a simple little box and then just decorating it really well or designing it really well. And so I feel like it makes sense for me to have a video like this. Like, even though, yes, it is a small build, it's not even a house, it's just a table. Like, it's literally just a table, an hour-long video for a table. But to me, it makes sense. So anyway, I do really hope, obviously, that this video is enjoyable to watch. I know that there's like not a big market for this kind of video, or there hasn't been. I'm trying to not let that affect what I make or what kind of video I make. I feel like I've always tried to do that. I've always tried to just make the kind of video that I want to make, that makes sense for me. And it's okay if I don't see anyone else doing that. I'm just going to do it anyway. And if it works out, it works out. If it doesn't, it doesn't. And so this year, I'm just going to try to focus on doing only what I want to do and really not worry about if anyone else is going to like it or not. Like, obviously, I hope that everyone loves everything that I do and is obsessed with it completely, but like, who cares? Who cares if they're not? Like, I just really want to make what I want to make, and at the end of the day, that is what's going to make me happy. So I hope you enjoy this, and I guess we'll find out. So in this footage, let's see, I wasn't really watching it. I think I'm still just decorating. I know that at some point we will move on to something else in the video that I am going to be talking about, but I don't think that we're at that point just yet. So this is where this kind of right side of the table started to come together. I do really like how I created that little elevated platform with the Mothman table, I think it was. But this is a point in the video where I said I knew that there was something coming up that I wanted to talk about. And this is where I first started to try to figure out how to address the underside of the table. I think this is where I started to panic of like, uh-oh, I maybe made a mistake. Because I didn't know how I was going to be covering up any of that stuff. Like, there was a lot of stuff under the table that needed to be addressed. And yeah, I definitely was feeling nervous at this point because I didn't really know what to do. After some searching, and by some, I mean a lot of searching through the building menu, I kind of came upon these stumps that we got somewhat recently. Oh God. So this is where I remembered that we have this new perk card, Wrecking Ball, where we can destroy things. I definitely do not recommend using an explosive bow to destroy what you need to destroy. I later in the video switched to a walking cane or something. The explosive bow made everything get destroyed, which then was a giant massive pain when I went to repair it, and then I didn't have the items that I needed in order to repair it, and I had to go across the whole map to collect flowers so that I could repair everything all at the same time. Do not recommend doing that. So after I went all around to collect my flowers that I needed, which for the record were for those like hanging bouquet of dried flowers thing. I don't remember. Those are an in-game plan, but I don't remember what they're from. If you are going to use those in your build, like I did, I would recommend go collect all of your flowers, and then right when you go back to your build, just build as many of those flowers as you can and just save them in your inventory, because otherwise by the time you go to like build that item, they're probably going to be dead, and then you'll have to go collect them again. I really wish that they hadn't made any camp, like I wish they don't make any, I wish they didn't make any camp items, there we go, that required you to have the actual items in your inventory. Wow, this bone sound is very loud and distracting. Apparently skulls on a chessboard make a lot of clickety clackety. Oh, this is one of my favorite little merges that I did. So this is another example. Actually, that's 2 display items merged together. That was one of my favorite ones, the little the hand bones on the book. I really like that a lot. So yeah, I guess here I am just putting more display cases. I mean, they're not display cases. They definitely are chessboards. I am putting more of those all around. I think I must have gone and collected more items when I picked up flowers. I just got some bones and skulls and things. I think for this build especially, I definitely went to different cultist locations and just picked up junk just everywhere. I just go and pick up junk different places. Let's see. Here I am continuing the process of trying to figure out what the heck to do with the chandeliers. I did not know. I don't even know right now. Oh, here we go. Here we go. We got the flowers. Yeah, I guess at one point I thought I was going to try to put some flowers. I think I was thinking that I wanted to create some kind of like wings, or not wings, I don't know. I wanted like dried leaves or flowers or something, but it didn't look right. So I just left it and continued and moved on. Here I am continuing with adding the birds. I put I think 3 different birds on the table, maybe only 2. I'm not really sure. Oh, and now we are just moving back to the chandeliers because I thought I had an idea, and then I realized I didn't have an idea. So for this next little bit, I think I am basically just trying to readjust the spider webs, the cobweb situation. I was trying to make it look more natural. This footage looks a little bit crazy because I, again, was having to use free cam mode to get in there to select them. They are definitely a little bit tricky to grab sometimes when you have a lot of different objects around. Yeah, they're a little bit tough to grab. But anyway, I think eventually what I realized I wanted to do was kind of fill in with the spider webs to replace the conduit wires. So like I said earlier, I have these wires that are attached between all of the chandeliers, and I kind of tried to make it so that the spider webs were all connected, and like I tried to make it look like the spider webs were connecting all of the chandeliers together. Jeez, I don't know how to speak. Anyway, yeah, so I was basically just trying to make the spider webs look very natural and connected, which is pretty difficult because they are obviously just one-dimensional and very stiff looking. And I think, aren't they meant to be on walls? Or I forget if they're wall decor or whatever. Anyway, it's kind of hard to get them to look like they are real spider webs that are all like 3-dimensional and stuff. But I tried to do that, and I think I did a pretty good job in the end. I think that it ended up looking really cool. For a second here, I was trying to figure out, I had already picked out the chairs for all the way around the table, but then I was trying to figure out if I wanted 2 chairs at the heads of the table, and I couldn't find one that looked right, that felt right. And so I ended up just opting to not have any chairs at either end, and I just kind of made it look good in the way that I thought it looked good. I don't know. I put the owl there and a couple other items on like the side of the table. And then this part here, I'm not really sure how I'm going to describe this or what I was thinking of. Obviously, I did not end up using this idea in the end, but when I was first visualizing this concept in my head, the idea for the build, I really thought that there would be some kind of stuff in the background. And I think the idea was that it was going to just feel a little bit strange, a little bit surreal. I think that's what I was going for also with the chandeliers, like, you know, a little bit creepy, spooky, surreal, just unusual. And so this kind of like floating curtain with some lights and some musical instruments or something. I don't exactly know how to describe what I was thinking of, but in reality, it didn't really work. I didn't end up liking any of the things that I tried, so I just kind of gave up on that idea of having like this little curtain scene in the background. And yeah, I'm fine with that. It just didn't work. So now we are going back to the table, and I guess I'm starting to work on this left side. I have kind of worked out like a pretty good flow for the rest of the table, and this is kind of like the last little part. I mean, I still have quite a bit of decorating to do on the whole table, but I hadn't figured out what I was going to be doing on this left side for this kind of centerpiece over here. And I started out with like a ton of those beeswax candles and just like kind of clumping them up together. And then I found this glass. I forget what it's called. Is it a shot glass or something? But I put it on one of the chessboard displays, and then I realized if I kind of sink it down into the table a little bit, I was able to create this tea light candle, or like this little candle for the table. And I really liked that merge, and so, yep, that's something that I did. Wonderful. And okay, so now I have decided to put more plates all around the table. I think I hadn't decided at that point, like, what I was gonna do for like table settings, or maybe I just knew that I had to go collect the plates and I didn't want to. So I set out all of my chessboards, and I intentionally did not set every single place with the plate. And I did that because I really wanted to have this kind of abandoned feeling. Like it's almost like the table is in use, but it's also abandoned. And I really like that vibe for some reason. So this is the part of the video where I show you where to get the silver plates that I used for absolutely no reason at all. Yeah, I'm not really sure why I felt like this was necessary to put in the footage, but I did have to do a little bit of Googling on where to find silver plates, and they told me that this is where I should come to get them. And so I figured that I would just pass along the information. And so you now know where you can find silver plates if you wish to use them in a build in the future or today, whenever. It's up to you. So at the time that I was recording this, or building this, I should say, building and recording it, it was actually Mischief Night. One of the plans that I got from that event that I was very excited about and very excited about using in this build was this, I believe it's called the bony arm sconce. And yeah, it's amazing. It's wonderful. I ended up using it, like sinking it down into the table and just having like the hand with the candles sitting on the table. I'll show it later in the footage. The current footage is of, once again, me trying to figure out what in the world to do with the chandeliers. Still can't figure it out. Still didn't know what to do. There's also some kind of weird constant banging noise in the background, but I'm not really sure what that is, so I apologize. Also, my character didn't know what was going on either. Okay, so this is where I figured out what to do with the chandeliers. Okay, this is the moment. This was a moment. I cut out all of the footage of me looking through the menu for like 10 years, but then I realized that those giant chunky candles looked pretty good on top of the on the on the on the top of the top there. I don't know what I'm saying anymore. It's things are getting wild over here. And I'll be honest, it does feel a little bit anticlimactic to just have the candles be the thing that is on the top now. I don't know. I do like the way that they look. Oh, and also something I was going to say about those bony candles is that they actually drip wax. Like there's an animation of dripping wax that is so cool. And so because I put them at the top there, they kind of like drip down onto the table. It's very cool. I've said cool too many times now, but I just it's a good item. It's a very good item. I believe that I have now turned on that same weather machine again, which I don't remember right now what it's called, but I will have already probably put it on the screen at this point. And yeah, this looks very cool. I haven't watched this footage in a while, so now I'm also kind of watching this for the first time. And that weather machine looks pretty cool. I like it. Anyway, I believe that this is the part where I really go in and fix the spider webs for real. And I think that I obviously had to do that because I finally figured out what was supposed to be at the top of the chandeliers, and so it had to line up properly again. And I really was just adjusting everything and kind of like not really doubling them up. I don't know how to explain it. I just was trying to make them look good. And there are some points in the spider webs where there's just kind of like an end of it that is just sticking out, and so I was trying to, some of those I was covering up with the dried flowers, as if the dried flowers were kind of stuck in the spider webs. And yeah, eventually, after a lot of adjustment, just like so much adjustment over and over and over again, I eventually, like I said before, I removed the conduit wires and the conduits from inside. I don't really know what I'm doing here. I think I accidentally put a spider web in the table without thinking about it well enough, and then it got stuck. So this is what happens when you get something stuck, specifically a spider web. It's very difficult to get those out of there. So measure once, cut twice. Now that we have mostly gotten the spider webs under control, I think a lot of this next bit of footage is just more decorating with some of the display items, the junk items. And I feel like I have only mentioned junk items being placed in these chessboards, but you can actually put food items, some miscellaneous items, you can put some clothing items in them. So there's like a lot of different things you could put in there, but I just generally tend to think about junk being put in them. Anyway. Okay, so we are going now back in with Wrecking Ball, and I have acquired my I believe it's a walking cane. Is that what it's called? I don't know. It doesn't really matter. I would recommend, as I said earlier, using some kind of melee item or some kind of precision item so that you can destroy only what you need to destroy, which is what I did here. I did need to go in and destroy quite a few items in order to get these tree stumps in where I wanted them to be. I'm not really sure why those are creating so much more of an issue than other items. I think because they are like an item that has to be placed in the ground, and for some reason those kinds of items seem to have more issues than others. And yeah, so I am basically just kind of destroying everything and then placing more tree stumps in wherever I feel like they need to go. I don't know why I felt like this was the best option, but I do feel like it worked the best because it's kind of an organic shape, and something about that just makes it blend in a little bit more. So I was trying to figure out what was going on with my footage here, and I was very confused, but I think it's because there was something attacking my camp. Something like destroyed my weather machine or something. I don't know. But we are back, apparently, to the spider webs. Just when you thought we were done with the spider webs, apparently we are never done with the spider webs. So we will continue on with those. And I guess I'm just trying to attach this little section on the edge of the table there. Owl and whatnot. I really honestly don't know how much longer I can talk about spider webs, but I don't really know what else to talk about. I did try to attach some of them to the chairs going down to the ground because I thought that looked kind of cool, or like, you know, draping across the chairs and stuff. Unfortunately, they kind of need a bit of lighting on them in order to see them. Otherwise, it's just too dark to see them. So I got rid of a lot of them around the chairs just because they weren't very visible. But I liked the way that it looked anyway. Okay, now I guess that was just a spiderweb break, and now we're back to the underside of the table. We are fixing the underside of the table. Maybe I just needed a break from it because it's a lot. It's a lot. So, like I said, there are a lot of items underneath the table, and I just was kind of resorting to putting whatever I could under there that was not standing out very much. Like I wanted everything to blend in. I didn't want your eye to be drawn under the table. I wanted to distract from the underside of the table. And so yeah. Oh, here at this point I was kind of trying to figure out if I could add a second table to like just make it thicker so that you could see less, but it looked stupid, so I got rid of that eventually. Immediately, I would say. I got rid of it. And I just continued on whacking away. I used a lot of tree stumps, and then eventually I did also start putting in these plants that are low to the ground. Some of them I didn't want to use because they like stood out too much. Again, I didn't want to draw attention to the underside of the table. I just wanted to cover everything up and distract from it. So it took a while of trial and error of trying to figure out what looked good and what was not drawing the eye. You know what I'm saying? I feel like I'm just repeating the same words over and over again. But anyway, basically, I just kind of felt like using those plants also really added to the overgrown, abandoned feeling that I was going for. So that worked out perfectly. And another thing that I wanted to bring up was, so earlier I was trying to kind of talk about this circle of trees that I'm building inside of, and that I couldn't figure out what to call it. And I wanted to call it a cove, which I knew didn't feel right, but I couldn't think of the word. And so I looked it up, and there were a bunch of different words or terms that came up, but one of the ones that I found so interesting was a fairy ring or a fairy circle or a tree. Let me look this up for a second. Okay, so a couple of the things that I am reading are a fairy ring or a fairy circle, also a forest ring, and then there's also tree ring or even a folly, which is interesting. And then I found this site that is talking about fairy rings, and I wanted to read this really quick because I found it interesting. It says, a fairy ring is a common name for a group of redwood trees growing in a circle, usually around the stump of a logged old growth tree. After being cut down, a new generation of trees sprout from the roots of the fallen redwood, often creating a near perfect circle or ring. And then it goes on to talk about other stuff, but I just found that to be very interesting because obviously I am essentially creating this giant stump underneath my table that is like the centerpiece of the whole build, and then this circle is surrounding it of all of these trees. And I just feel like somehow I unintentionally created a fairy ring without knowing it, and it like perfectly goes with the theme of my build. This kind of mystical, magical kind of thing. I don't know, I just loved it and I wanted to share that with you guys. So, continuing on, I am just kind of finishing up some of the final details for the build. I wanted this chair to kind of sink down into the ground a little bit more, so I merged it below that axe so that it would not be like floating in the air a little bit. And then I came over to test out a few different weather machines. I don't have that many. Originally, I had the Atlantic City fog one, and this is the Halloween one, which I immediately hated and turned it off. And then I tested out the Mothman one, and I do like that one the best, although the Atlantic City fog one is also pretty good. And then I just moved on to kind of filling out the circle of trees, and I added more trees. I added a bunch of bushes and brush, underbrush, whatever it's called, and lots of bushes. We love a good bush around here. Okay, so originally I was thinking that I wanted to create kind of like, I was thinking that I was basically going to be putting like candles kind of hanging or floating in the trees, kind of in the background around like the circle of trees. And I obviously reached my maximum light budget, which is 50. And so in this footage right here, you can see that I am going through the building menu and picking out all of the different items I could think of that give off light without being a part of the light budget. And so those items are pretty critical to be able to like think of when you are somebody who uses a lot of lights in your build, like I do. I almost always max out my light budget. I ended up picking this pickled brain jar as like the one that I was going to end up using. But I did use it in a different way than I thought originally I was going to. So there you could see I'm kind of putting it around the perimeter of the trees, like on the inside. And I just felt like that didn't really do what I wanted it to do. And so I ended up using it in a different way, which I will be showing. But first, in this little moment here, I am kind of trying to figure out how to use my last two chessboards. You can see that I have used 30 of 30 chessboards. They ended up being like a massive part of the entire build. So I am glad that I went all around and collected all of the different things that I needed to get. This skull in particular is one of my most favorite items, and also like the favorite skull. Like there's different versions of skulls. There's a full one, and there's like one without a jaw, and then this one is called the capless skull, and it has like this perfect bowl shape that I ended up using the little bony hand candle to put inside this skull bowl. I loved it. I'm obsessed with that. I think it's one of the coolest items. I believe that I probably went to there's a location in the game that I can't think of the name of right now, but I will put it on the screen, and it has tons of skeletons and bones that you can collect. And yeah, that's probably where I went to find that. So we are apparently back to the spider webs just a little bit. I am, again, just finishing up some of the last details. I put a brain jar inside of this vending machine to kind of light it up a little bit. The vending machine I only added because I wanted to give people a reason to come to my camp. It doesn't fit with the vibe for any reason, but I just wanted to have it so that people would come and buy my stuff and look at my camp. Okay, so this is where I am kind of deciding on this little pathway that kind of leads your eye to the entrance of the build from the place that you load in, which was a problem. So there is a certain amount of adjustment you can make with your camp module that will adjust where people load in for your builds, but it will always be kind of a certain distance northeast of your camp module. So with the way that my build is set up and the way, like with where I wanted people to load in, there was just going to be no way that I could get people to load in where I wanted them to be. And so I just kind of had to make it so that they loaded in off to the side, and then right when you load in, I wanted them to be able to see lights kind of leading this pathway off to the right so that it would kind of naturally bring you around to the entrance where I want you to come in. Obviously, it doesn't really matter. Like, you can enter the tree circle from whatever direction you want to, but I just wanted to do this in order to like try to get people to go where I wanted them to be. And so I kind of created this lighted path with these brain jars, and I hid them in some plants and these baskets to cover up the jar itself. Like, I didn't want you to see the jar. I just wanted you to see the glow of the lights. And it took some figuring out to get it the way that I wanted it to be. But eventually I like the way that it turned out, and I think that it worked. So this is the entrance that I was trying to direct people to. There are basically these two massive trees that are in-game trees, and they kind of frame, well, I used them to frame this like entrance scene, you know, so when you walk up, you have this perfect view of the table with the chandeliers, and I definitely wanted to try to make that the actual entrance where you would walk up and walk into. It is the only clearing in the whole circle. So yeah, that's why I went through all the trouble of trying to get this path to lead you kind of around this corner. It probably wouldn't, it's probably not going to work in reality. People are probably just going to run straight in, which is also fine. Again, like I said, it's not really a big deal. But here you can see that I kind of finally decided on a technique that I was using for these. Like I said earlier, I pretty much just put the brain jar inside one of those flower baskets, and then I covered all of that up with these two different kinds of plants, and I can't read what they're called at this moment because it's so tiny on my screen right now, but you can see it on the screen. I used like a variety of different bushes and plants and things like that. So beyond just me kind of fixing up the last little bit of these bushes here, the only other thing that I really had footage of that I wanted to show was me kind of putting the weather machine up into the trees, which you also saw me doing earlier with my camp module. And the only reason that I'm doing this is because it's easy. Like I like getting rid of these and hiding them. The camp module, I always have trouble trying to hide that, and the weather machine, I would normally put it underground, but because we have this free place stuff now, it's so easy to just float things, and because I have this like dense forested area, I just felt like it would be really easy to just kind of put them up in the air and no one would really see them. The lights on them just bother me. That's why I want to hide them. The camp module especially has this white light that is like, it always catches my eye. I don't like to see it. So I just put them up and out of the way. So that is going to bring us to just about the end of the video. I would like to say thank you so much for watching and for leaving a like, subscribing, maybe a comment if you would like to, feel free. And if you would like to stay updated with other things that I am working on, Patreon is definitely the best place to do that. I have content that is for free followers as well as paid members. So before I go, I really want to make sure that I give a huge thank you to all of my patrons. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much. And for everybody else who is listening right now, thank you so much as well. Thanks for being here, and I will see you in the next video, which hopefully will be soon.